Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and in this video we're going to talk about arrays in JavaScript. We're going to talk about what an array is and how they work. So an array is essentially just an object that allows us to store multiple things that are of the same type. So for example, if we created a variable called car and then we just put sob inside of that car, then that's fine. That's one single variable with one single data type. But if we created a variable called cars and we put a bunch of data inside, then we can store a bunch of different values for that data in one place. We don't have to create separate variables for every single one of these. So again, this really just allows us to organize our data in a bit better way. Now, here is the syntax for creating an array. You start with the var keyword, the variable keyword. You give it the array name. Now, usually arrays are named as plural. So instead of car, it would be cars because we're putting multiple items within. And then we have the equal. And then we have these brackets here, these straight brackets. And then inside we have our information or our data separated by commas. We can also do a multi-line. We can create arrays in stacked like this, which helps a little bit with being able to see what we're actually doing. Now we can also create a new array in a variable that exists just by using the new keyword. I won't ever use it that way. This is not the way that I generally create arrays. I always use the first way, the array literal method. This is how I always create arrays. This way does exist, but I don't ever use it. So let's talk about how to access specific information within an array. So in arrays, the first piece of data is always in the 0 place, okay? So these are the individual discrete pieces of data. These are technically called indexes or elements. JavaScript calls them elements. In other programming languages are called indexes. So the first element in an array is always 0. So if we were to access cars 0, we would get sob. If we accessed cars 2, which was a terrible movie, we get BMW, right? And so that's how arrays essentially work. You call out the element that you are looking for within the array. Now we can change data inside of that element. We just call the element specifically, and then we set it equal to something else. So just like reassigning data in a variable, we can reassign data in an array. Okay. We can also access the full array by just calling the array without indicating which element we want to call. And it will display the entire array on the screen separated by commas. Pretty easy stuff. Now it's important to remember that arrays are objects. So we talked about objects a couple of weeks ago. Arrays are objects, and we can actually store. So I'm trying to think about why this is important for us to talk about right now. Oh, well, that was a loud noise. Yeah. So elements in an array can be an object. So I guess here's the best way to talk about it. So just like with an object, we can store a bunch of different types of data, and we can even store functions inside of an array. Well, we can also store objects, or inside of an object, sorry. With an object, we can store functions inside of the object and different types of data. With an array, we can store objects inside each element in an array. And vice versa. We can store arrays inside of objects as well. So I guess that's really the only thing that you need to know about the fact that they're both technically objects. So let's see. You can also call, there are a certain number of methods that we're going to talk about next that you can actually call on your array. For example, the sort method will sort your array by alphabetical order or by numerical order if it's an array of numbers. You can call the property length, which will return the amount of elements that are inside your array. For example, this has 4 elements, so it's going to return 4. Okay. Sure. Looping array elements. This is something we're going to talk about next term when we get into looping. For each is a helpful function with arrays because it allows us to essentially run a specific function for each individual element of the array. We can add elements to our array by using the push method. So for example, I can say fruits.push and then push a new fruit into the array. That's really helpful. So this fruits array then becomes a 5-element array with lemons at the end. So yeah, there you go. That's the example. Associative arrays. I don't really need to talk about this right now. Yeah, we don't need to talk about this right now. We'll be fine. Let's see. Difference between arrays and objects. Okay, fine. Yeah, that's the big difference. Arrays use numbered indexes or numbered elements, whereas objects use named indexes. So if you want to access a variable inside of an object, you have to call it by name, whereas with an array, you just call the box, the element, the index that data sits inside. All right. So here's when you want to use arrays and when you want to use objects. So you should use objects when you want the element names to be strings, and you should use arrays when you want the element names to be numbers. That's really the big difference. None of this really, you can go through it and do the exercises at the bottom if you really want to. Let's see. Yeah, the toString method. So popping and pushing is really what I want to get to. So popping and pushing essentially allows you to remove items from an array and push items into an array. So when you pop stuff, it basically just pulls it out. And when you add, it adds to the end. Now, pop will pop the last thing off of the array. An array is a data structure which is first in, last out, meaning the banana is the first in, and then mango is the last in. So we'd basically stack all these in here, and then if we were going to remove them, we would remove them in the reverse order that we put them in there. Does that make sense? So push will add a new element to the end. Pop will take the element off the end. We can shift. So we can shift to remove the first array element and shifts all the elements to a lower index. This basically subverts the idea of arrays being a first in, last out, because we can use shift, which will pull this out and then shift all of these back down. It's a very, very handy method. Unshift will allow you to add a new element to the beginning and then shift everything back. Let's see. Changing elements, we talked about that. Deleting elements. Don't ever delete elements inside an array. You can. Deleting actually exists. It's a real thing. But you don't want to do that because you're going to leave holes, undefined holes within your array, basically just little like black holes in the middle of your data structure that you don't want to worry about. Always use pop or shift. You can splice arrays. I don't really splice arrays, but you can. It's kind of a complicated process. Basically, it's where you cut an array into 2 different arrays. I don't really do that. You can also merge arrays together. Again, that's something that you're probably never going to deal with. Slicing, merging, sure. Let's get into sort, because sort is really important. So sorting will basically just sort your array in the type that, or in the format that it thinks you want it to sort into. So for example, in an array like this, it would sort our array in alphabetical order. You can also reverse. You can do a reverse, which will reverse. It does the opposite of a sort, basically. Numeric sort will just basically sort it in, number order. We can also do, so if we try to, so all right, let's go over this a bit. So the sort function will sort your values as strings. So if I do the sort method like this, then it's going to turn 40 into 40 as a word, right? 25 is bigger than 100 because 2 is bigger than 1, right? So because of this, the sort method will produce incorrect results when sorting numbers. We can fix this by using a compare function. So if we go into here, we can create a function here, and then we can use this, all of this I can't believe I even opened this to show you because this is a lot. So basically what we're doing here is we're returning, this is a recursive function. I don't want to do that. I'm going to get rid of that. Just know it's possible to sort your numbers properly. We're not going to worry about that in this class. Alrighty. And that's all compare function. Sorting an array in random order, you can use math.random. Now we're getting into like high-level computer science stuff, the Fisher-Yates method and why people, whatever. Don't worry about that. We can find the highest or lowest array value, min-max. We can do all kinds of stuff. This is all stuff that we really don't need to go over for this class. All right. Let's talk about one more thing, which is iteration, which we're not actually going to talk about because that's something we're going to get into next term. So this lesson is going to be over because we've already gone over the things I need you to know right now. Let's review very quickly. Arrays, they're just like variables, except you can store multiple pieces of data within the same data structure. You can use pop and push to add or remove data to your array. You can use the length attribute which will return how many indexes are in your array currently. With that information, and you can use sort to alphabetize your array. With that information, you'll easily be able to do the arrays demonstration lesson. If you struggle with it, if you have any issues with it at all, please let me know and I can help you. Other than that, have fun this week, and then next week we get into some really cool stuff, and I cannot wait to see what you guys come up with. All right, see you later.